Hello everybody. I thought I would show you all how to do increases on the Irish moss stitch for this cardigan pattern. I finished the cardigan that I was working on. Now I'm making another one for the person's sister. But I realized I showed everybody how to do the decreases, but I didn't do one for the increases, and it can be kind of tricky. And of course, with trial and error, I figured it out. So on this pattern here, for the sleeves, this first 4 rows that it shows are setting up the ribbing that goes around the wrist. So you end up doing a total of 8 rows of this ribbing. And then they tell you to proceed in Irish moss stitch pattern as given for the back for 6 rows. So then you got to flip your thing over and you go up here. This first set is also for that border ribbing, so don't look at that. You want to look at this one, and this is the pattern they want you to follow for the next 6 rows. Purl 1, knit 1, purl 1, knit 1, purl 1, knit 1, all the way to the end. And then the second and third row are both knit 1, purl 1 to the end. And then the fourth row is just like the first one. It's purl 1, knit 1, purl 1, knit 1. So you do that for 6 rows. Then it tells you over here, increase 1 stitch each end of next row and following 4th rows until there are however many stitches, whichever size you're working on. And then they want you, of course, to take increased stitches into the pattern. And then you continue in pattern until it measures 18 inches. But you only have to increase until you get to the right number of stitches. So I have knitted a little swatch here on this Red Heart Super Jumbo Saver yarn. It's a number 4 yarn. And I did like a little bit of the border, and then I did, oh, one of my stitches has slid off. Look at that. There we go. And then I did a little bit of the, I did one section of the main pattern so that you can see. So when I was making the cardigan, I went along, instead of using a row counter, I actually wrote down what I was doing on a piece of paper because it helped me so much. And for the increases, I would increase, so you have your 4 rows, right, that you're knitting that give you your Irish moss pattern. So what I would do is I would increase on the 3rd row of each set of 4. So on the first increase, I'll show you how to do that. We're going to have our first stitch be a purl stitch. So we're going to want to go in, let me get this here where we can see it, go into our first stitch right here like this, as if to purl, grab our yarn, wrap it around, pull it through, but don't take it off the needle yet. Then we're going to put this piece of yarn in the back. So I'll show you again what I did because I kind of went off the camera. Kind of like making an X. You go in between the 2 needles, put it to the back, put this right needle back in the same stitch you went into the first time, as if to purl, and we're going to run it through the back to knit, wrap the thing around, and then pull it off, and you have your increased stitch over here. So this one was a purl, this one is a knit. So now we're going to continue on to the end. Purl 1, knit 1, purl 1, knit 1, purl 1. All right, so now we're at the last stitch, and the pattern says to increase 1 at each end. So I'm going to put my yarn to the back as if to knit, and we're going to go in this last stitch through the back loop to knit, wrap it around, pull it through, but before we slip it off, the next stitch is a purl stitch. So we're going to run this yarn through in between the needles, bring it back to the front, take our right needle, put it through that last stitch as if to purl it, and then wrap the yarn around like a purl, and then slide it off. My phone is flying all over. Anyways, so there we go. So here we have our swatch with our 2 increases, and we have not broke pattern. So that's all you have to do on each increase row. Now, some of them do change, so I will show you on my paper. Like the first stitch, the one that I just showed you is this one. See, I put knit, the I for increase, and then I put P for purl, so I know to start with a purl when I do the increase. So that's what I just showed you, and then you continue on the next row. Instead of starting it with a purl stitch, you want to start it with a knit stitch, because if you purl it, it gets off. The pattern goes off. So you knit the next one, then you get to row 1, and instead of purling that one, you're going to knit it. Row 2, instead of knitting, you're going to purl. Row 3, you're down to your next increase row. When you do this increase, you're going to want your first stitch to be a knit stitch, then a purl. So you start that increase out as if to knit instead of as if to purl, like I showed you up here on this other one. And the way the pattern ends up working out is that you increase the first one with a purl, the next one increase is on a knit, and then when you get down here, the next increase is a purl, and then the next increase is a knit. And you can see that the stitching in between changes. Now once you get down to your last increase, which was here for me, I got up to, was that 53? My writing is terrible. I think it says 53 stitches. This was my last one, and then instead of purling, you knit this one, and then instead of knitting the first, or purling the first stitch in the next set of 4, you knit, and then the 2 knits are purls, and then the last one is also a knit. And you just kind of keep going that way, and it kind of continues in that way until you get to the end. I hope that helps. I hope it's not too confusing. I'm trying to explain it without it being too confusing, but to give you an idea, it took me a little bit of time to figure out the increases and you know, how to do them and keep the pattern. But if you do that and follow that, it should work. And there might be some other ways to do it, but that's the way that I found that works for me, and it's not too bad. So I will go ahead also, I can show you my finished project, the cardigan that I finished. So here is my finished cardigan. I made this for my niece, and I used homespun yarn to do it. I used the green and the gold, those are her school colors. And so she doesn't know that she's getting this yet. She knows she's getting something homemade, but she doesn't know what. But it turned out really nice. And this is the second one I've made off of that pattern that I showed you guys. And it's not that hard once you figure it out. And if you take notes and write down what you're doing, so if you know you're going to make another one, it's helpful because then you can refer to your notes and you're not looking at the pattern going, oh, what did I do for this one? I don't remember. But it makes a beautiful cardigan, and you don't have to use homespun yarn, but I like homespun. It's really soft, and it's kind of difficult to work with, but it makes a beautiful, it knits up beautifully. So I love it. The first one I made, I used a different kind of yarn. It wasn't homespun. I can't remember the name of it. Something I found at Joann Fabrics. Anyways, that's all for today, but I wanted to show you that, and hopefully it helps any of you that might be struggling with this particular pattern. Bye.